Is SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers. I am Matt Watson, your host. As always, it is good to have you in. We're excited about today's show. We will get into it in just a couple of minutes. But I want to remind you that this special edition of Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers is brought to you by KHTS in collaboration with SCVI and iLead Charter Schools. We come to you live each day, each Monday through Friday, starting at 9 a.m., providing support and updates on your distance learning journey. And we are continually curating and adding new resources to our website for you. Head on over to homeschoolinganswers.com and take a look at the different curricular resources. We've got parent supports. We've got all kinds of fun and engaging activities for your kids on homeschoolinganswers.com. So go ahead and check that out. Excuse me. Before we get started this morning, I do want to give a special shout out to those of you graduating at Valencia High School right now. Actually, you're out at Central Park as we've shifted to distance graduation this year, but you're graduating from Valencia High School. So congratulations, graduates, and congratulations, and we are so very sorry. It is not fair that you have to graduate this year, but Vikings, you are graduating. It's a huge accomplishment, and we congratulate you. Good job. Now, the world needs you. Go and make this world a better place. Bless you all. Again, one more time, congratulations, Valencia Vikings. We got a very special show today. You know, I say something like that pretty much every morning. I get it. What can I say? I happen to think we put together a pretty good show. But today is a truly special one. You all know. I'm going to recap some things that you're all very, very familiar with. On May 25th, Memorial Day in Minneapolis, Minnesota, George Floyd was killed when an officer from the Minneapolis PD knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. Floyd's murder was seen by many as merely the latest unjustified killing of an unarmed black man due to not just an individual act of racism, but they saw it as indicative of a nationwide systemic problem that our country's been grappling with for decades and indeed centuries. It has since sparked protests and outrage across the country, including here in Santa Clarita. Now, this is not the first time that these problems have been identified in America, and these protests have demanded that we as a nation address the issue. And while there has been some violence and destruction, the protests have been mostly peaceful and purposeful, especially here in Santa Clarita. Really, really proud of our city. They've been focusing on the message that things need to change, and they need to change now. You know, I spoke with someone over the weekend who said, you know, Matt, change takes time. And I said, okay, well, maybe it's time that we start accelerating that process. Another thing that I'm proud of is it does seem like people are listening like never before. For over 30 years, KHTS, your hometown station, has been a leader in the Santa Clarita Valley. It's for this reason that we bring to you today the first of a series of discussions intended to hold space for the dialogue that needs to take place in our communities. In an effort to be the change that we want to see in the world, we're launching a series this morning called Beginning the Conversation. In a time when more of us are listening than ever before, we're seeking to give a voice to those who've gone unheard for far too long, specifically today, the African American community. So today we welcome Jim Ventris. To many of you, Jim is synonymous with the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita. In fact, the flagship clubhouse in Newhall even bears his name. Jim began working with the Boys and Girls Club back in the 70s at the Salesian Boys Club of Los Angeles. And I think it's interesting that when Jim started working, it was called the Boys Club. And we've shifted to a bit more of an inclusive name, the Boys and Girls Club. But Jim started there in Los Angeles, where he served for 8 years before being recruited to take over the leadership of the Santa Clarita clubs in 1985. There, Jim guided the club's development during a time of significant growth in Santa Clarita, ensuring that it met the needs of the community for 29 years before his eventual retirement. His vision and passion led to a number of significant achievements, including overseeing the planning, design, and capital campaign for the $1.2 million, 20,000 square foot Newhall Clubhouse at Newhall Park that opened in 1992, overseeing the planning, design, and capital campaign for the $6.2 million, 27,000 square foot Boys and Girls Club at Sierra Vista Junior High School that opened in 2003. Being selected in 1999 as the Boys and Girls Club of America National Keystone Teen Advisor of the Year. Being selected as Bank of America's Local Hero in 2008. I could list some of Jim's other recognitions and accolades, but this is only a 2-hour show, and we've got some very important topics to discuss. Jim, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me, and I want to compliment you on the opening of your show with our graduates. All of our graduates, congratulations and well said.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a difficult year for kids to be graduating, and they're on a staggered schedule. So we've got graduations going on for about 2 weeks. You know, our high schoolers have been through so much this year, and you know, with the fires, the school violence, pandemic, and then even when the kids were on distance learning, we've continue to see bad news coming out of some of our high schools. It's been a really tough time, but I was talking to my son, who actually graduated on Friday, talking to him, and I said something similar. I said, you know, son, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. And he looked at me, he says, yeah, and please forgive my language, but I'm going to repeat what my 17-year-old said. He says, yeah, it kind of sucks. But Dad, the world is a place that kind of sucks right now, and we've developed some grit and some strength this year that I think we're going to need. And you know, just blows my hair back how you know, some of those pearls can come out of some of our younger people. They're seeing things.
They surprise you.
They surprise you, and it amazes me. I don't know, maybe it was just me. When I was 17 years old, I didn't have the perspective on the world that so many of our young people do. You know, when I was 17, I was frustrated because I couldn't vote. I wanted to vote to affect change in my country, in my community. But other than that, I figured I'm not 18 yet. No one really cares what I have to say. But we see kids that are 10, 12, 14 years old out there changing the world, and they've discovered a way. This generation has discovered a way to affect some massive change in our communities before they even get the right to vote. So it is really inspiring. I want to thank you for joining us today, Jim. And before we get into some of the deeper topics that we're going to talk about this morning, I want to recognize that you're one man. You are a community member. You've been a pillar in our community for over 3 decades, but by no means do we expect you to speak for an entire community or a social movement, and I want to recognize that before we begin. However, as an African American man so closely connected to the Santa Clarita Valley and so many of its leaders, as well as the thousands of young people who grew up in the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita during the 3 decades that you were at the helm, you do possess a rare connection and understanding of our city. So let's go ahead and start here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, your journey to get you where you eventually got here in our community?
Well, first I'll start off with I was blessed to have my mom and dad very focused on the 4 kids. And instead of being raised in New Orleans, they brought us out to Santa Clarita. They brought us to Los Angeles, and so when I look back, all the sacrifices they made. First of all, they sent us to Catholic school with the nuns. Mm-hmm. They don't play. You will learn to read. You will learn to write. You know, and then after that, I went to Salesian High School in East Los Angeles. And I had to take a bus through downtown L.A., mm-hmm. and so that was an education in itself, and so that gave me some insight in growing up. So I think I was always knew I was going to go to college, and junior college, Los Angeles City College, helped me get through those first couple of years. Worked part-time at EPS, mm-hmm. and then, of course, Vietnam was going on, so in my sophomore year, I'd finished 29 units my freshman year. Sophomore year, I dropped 1 unit, one class, and was a 3-unit, and I fell a half a unit short. 3 weeks later, Uncle Sam sent me that brown envelope saying, "Greetings from the United States Army." And so I did 2 years and wound up going to Germany. I did testing, so I tested everybody that came in for my first 6 months, and so that was interesting up at Fort Lewis. So I got quite a bit of experience, and I worked as scanner, so when I got out of the service, I went back to City College to get my AA degree in data processing. And at UPS, instead of loading trucks, I did get into computer room.
Oh, okay.
So no more sweating. So that was great. And then from there, I went into management for the company, but they made me to go drive a truck for 3 months because the drivers are the background of the company. So all was well. And then I was up on a special assignment when I was an industrial engineer for them, and I was in Portland, Oregon, looking out at the Willamette River, and I think that was my calling at that time. The money was great. For about a year and a half, I was spending about 2.5 weeks a month on the road.
Okay.
So I go, this is all great, but it's not working for me, and I think I'm supposed to work with kids.
All right.
And I always felt that junior high school would be where I could really do the most. I think at that time, I felt we need more males images at the junior high schools, and the diversity needed to be there. So I go, that's my thing. So I get there, transferred to Cal State Los Angeles, and I ran into somebody who started talking about this Salesian Boys Club, and I go, oh, I went there for 2 summers, and I got my first job there, and stuff like that, and I said, who's running the place? They said, well, Father Murphy, and I go, Father Ralph J. Murphy? And they go, yeah, and I go, he was my principal at Salesian High School. I need to stop by and see him because I was in the Letterman Club and all that good stuff, So I stopped by to see him, and the old club was looking run down, and he was trying to get it going again, and so he convinced me to give a year.
Okay.
While I was getting my degree, and so instead of going into teaching, I worked there 1 year. And then 36 more years after that. So that's my story.
Well, first of all, thank you for your military service. Appreciate that. We've got just a couple minutes before we need to break, but I wanted to ask, you've been known as a staple at the Boys and Girls Club for decades now. What brought you to the club up here in Santa Clarita?
Well, they wanted to do more for teen programs, and when I came up and surveyed everything, first thing I go, well, you have satellites. They were in 5 different locations with small satellite bungalows setups and 2 small buildings. And so I said, you need space, you need a full service building. Most of the board did not know what a full service building looked like, so they wind up hiring me, and I took them on a field trip. So we went to Pasadena and Santa Monica, and we saw full-size buildings, and they were like, whoa, we need this here. And so we said, if we put one on the west side, we're going to have to put one on the east side. And so that was our goal. And so my first year of college, first year and a half, I was an architecture student. Okay. So that didn't go to waste, and so I worked with the architects, and that was fun. And we just had super support, super committee people, super board members that picked up the phone and made things happen.
Yeah, and together you guys accomplished quite a bit. Jim, I do want to kind of wrap up some of the things that you've been able to accomplish here in our community, but we also want to talk about what's currently going on in our community. Some of the protests and demonstrations going on, and we want to get your perspective. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll get to that when we come back. You're listening to SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers. I'm your host, Matt Watson, with Jim Ventris on your hometown station, KHTS.
Green Thumb International, your lawn and garden professionals, have the widest variety of shrubs, flowering plants, and garden supplies in the Santa Clarita Valley. Condition and fertilize your soil. Water does not easily penetrate clay soils and may pass too quickly beyond the root zone of plants in sandy soil. Adding organic matter to these soils will help correct imbalances and reduce water waste. On Newhall Avenue in Old Town Newhall near Sierra Highway, Green Thumb puts the green in your thumb.
Hi, this is Bob Schertz with the Way Out Recovery SCV, reminding you that during these unprecedented times, addiction and mental health do not take a break. If you or someone you love are struggling, please give us a call at 661-296-4444. We are open and here to help you during this time. Thanks.
There's a very good reason Embrace Your Smile has been voted Santa Clarita's #1 orthodontist for 10 years in a row.
Honestly, it's our team.
Dr. Megan LeCornu.
I think for me, what makes it stand out is when I have patients that come up to me and say, we have never been in a doctor's office that feels like this. Our team is a family, and we really get along, and we are really passionate about what we do, helping our patients get the smiles they want and deserve.
Dr. Megan LeCornu of Embrace Your Smile Orthodontics.
Embrace your smile.
EmbraceYourSmile.com.
Your hometown station.
KHTS is the only station I listen to.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is SCVI Charter School's Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers with Matt Watson. I'm joined this morning by Jim Ventris, and we're launching a special series that we're going to be doing here at KHTS called Beginning the Conversation, taking a deep look at our community and our nation as we continue to re-examine ourselves and what we're doing and how we're treating all different sectors of society. Jim, we talked a little bit before the break about your service to the Boys and Girls Club and your upbringing. Now, you retired in 2014. What have you been up to since your retirement?
Oh, sleeping late.
Great.
Some traveling. I've been to Hawaii about 3 times, Mexico on a cruise. A lot of time just getting back with old friends, classmates, guys I was in the military with, really catching up with people and having these, 2 or 3 hour lunches, even with a couple of the former captains of our sheriff's station, Bob Spear and Mr. Rodriguez. We get together and we have 2-3 hour lunches and some wild stories.
Wow. You see, folks, there is hope. Just hold on.
Oh,
Keep
yeah.
yourself healthy like Jim, and you will get there. And I do want to remind folks it is definitely a worthy cause. And with this year's biggest fundraiser being canceled for the Boys and Girls Club here in Santa Clarita due to the pandemic, right now is a great time to give to the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita. You can go to SCVBGC, that's short for Santa Clarita Valley Boys and Girls Club.org, SCVBGC.org. I'm sure that Jim would appreciate a nice, healthy donation, but that is not why we've asked him to come onto the show today. We had Matt Nelson on a couple weeks ago to talk about all the wonderful things the club is doing, and if you feel so inclined, head on over to that website and donate. But we wanted to talk to Jim about what's going on in our country and in our community today. Let's start looking at a national level, Jim. Like I said earlier, on Memorial Day, May 25th, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, prompting protests and demonstration that have grown to now worldwide perspectives. We've seen massive marches and demonstrations as far away as Europe and in Asia, demonstrating for change here in the United States. It's amazing that even foreign nations are recognizing that we've got some changes to make. Again, we've seen protests to racial inequities in the past, including here in LA. 1965, the Watts riots, 1992, what was referred to as the LA Uprising. But maybe it's my perspective, and the reason you're here today is I recognize my perspective is rather limited, but it seems to me that this time things are different. It's not a few days of rioting and then police taking control and then going back to normal, right? We talked about it with COVID. We're not going back. We're
Right.
moving forward into a new normal, and it seems like the protesters have the same type of determination on their mind. What do you see happening here? Why are things different this time?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you clarified riot and peaceful protesters.
Okay.
Because I think that's what we're having in this country. Now, some of the locations have had infiltrations from people who are anti-government, people that are racist, and people that just take advantage of the situation and do the looting.
Sure.
But the majority, and I think which happened the first couple of days, the looting was terrible. I think some people took that image and say, see, look.
Right.
But they're not seeing. They're seeing what they want to see. And I think what has happened is that after the third day, the protesters started to figure it out. Who are these guys here? You know, that guy has a hammer. This guy, I remember there was one lady right at the Starbucks by, I think it was Farmers Market, and one of the protesters saw this group dressed in black.
Okay.
And they were spray painting, and she goes, hey, don't do that, don't do that. And she started pointing her finger, and she started walking toward him. She goes, ma'am, we're here to protest. This is not the way we protest.
I think I saw what you're talking about. She didn't point only the finger at him. She pointed the camera at him.
Right.
I said, look, this is not who we are. This is not what we are doing.
Exactly. And then there's a few others, and all of a sudden you saw this group of 5 or 6 walking away. And I think more of that started to happen to say, hey, we're out here. This is our purpose, you know.
Right.
So I think that was the clarification that their protests is stay focused on why we're protesting. And I think what has happened too is that because now social media is instant. See, back in the riots in '65, I was a freshman in high school, and I do remember you got the 6 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news. And then when they say breaking news, they meant breaking news. It wasn't like every day we had breaking news.
Sure.
Back then, it was like, had to be a big story.
Right.
So I think in today's times, everything is instant. We can find out what's going on right now in D.C., what's going on. And then, of course, people on their telephones can take pictures.
Yeah.
And when you saw the image of that 75-year-old man being shoved, hitting the ground, and then starting to bleed, you know, it just breaks your heart.
Sure.
And you see these images coming on, and it's just instant, and we have a problem. And I think people are starting to realize we do have a problem, but then it's to focus in on, you know, what is that problem, you know? And then also, there's a lot of good law enforcement people. So don't condemn the whole department, but in some communities, we're finding out now why people are so upset. And you see certain things that have been going on and on and on and on. So I think more people are starting to see a little bit more. There really is a problem because I'm seeing the visuals.
That's what I was going to ask, is I was wondering if you thought, because I don't think anyone out there would say, this problem is new, this didn't exist in the past, but it's one thing to hear about it. You know, you hear marchers in the 60s were hit with fire hoses and had German shepherds sicked on them, and maybe you see a black and white photograph in your history text. It's another thing when you see raw video moments after it's happened.
Correct.
And you're watching a human being being killed on live camera. So you think that's why so many other sectors of the community have sat up and taken notice this time?
I think too, and I also think the young people, they can go to Google. So when they talk to their friends about something, they say, well, let's fact check it. They go to Google and they find out that some horrible things have gone on that they didn't get in school. And unless you went to college and took some of the cultural classes where you understand the plights of certain groups of people and what they've had to go through, then you never get their perspective. You never try to walk in their feet, you know, in their shoes. You just don't do it. And you see what you see and through your eyes. And so you think, well, I don't see a problem. until you start to see a problem.
Right.
Visually see the problem.
Sure.
You go like, oh my God.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's our experiences that kind of shape how we see things, kind of the lens through which we see things.
Exactly.
You and I can watch the same images on television and see different things, right? And I was talking with a friend of mine a while back. She and I were watching the same things going on, yet we were seeing different things.
Yeah.
But as you see more and more and more, it gets a little bit more difficult to, I guess, if I'm wearing those rose-colored glasses, the tint becomes lighter and lighter each time, You can see it a little bit more clearly.
Amen.
It's interesting. The Black Lives Matter movement I was reading last night. It was actually founded in 2013, 7 years ago now. But it's reemerged into the forefront these last few weeks. And while no one is disputing that Black lives do indeed matter, I think everyone would agree with that statement. Some have responded to that movement with the response of all lives matter. Jim, what would you say to those folks that would say that all lives matter? Is there something missed in that statement?
Well, first of all, they're correct. All lives matter.
Right.
But I think what the Black Lives Movement is really, it's the priority of the time right now that we're living in. And if you look at history, and a lot of people don't understand history, or if they hear it, they kind of dismiss it. And when I bring up white privilege, or if I bring up something like 400 years of slavery, they'll say, well, that was back then. That's not now. And I say, well, then after that, we had 100 years of Jim Crow. And I go, I was in high school, just starting high school, when they signed the Civil Rights Bill. When I was like 10, 11, 12 and took the train with my mom and my older brother to New Orleans to see our grandmother, they wouldn't take us to certain areas because they didn't want us to see the colored-only drinking fountains. Okay?
Yeah. So we're talking about very, very recent. This isn't ancient history.
Yeah, and then when I just say, when you think about the history and slavery, we're talking about not a decade or two, we're talking about a century and another century and another century. And we are accustomed in our lifestyles and just the way we live is that we want to do more for our kids so our kids can do better for us.
Right.
Can you see generation after generation, you're still a slave. You're still a slave.
Right.
And people are getting rich off the slaves, And then when you finally do get the slavery being abolished through the Civil War, and then you also realize that there was a lot of people, white people, saying, this is wrong, slavery is wrong, and the country went to war over it.
Sure.
Then we have free slaves, but you can't educate, you can't get educated.
Right.
You can't get a job. In some cases, you can't own property. Some places, they did give you some property. And you go another 100 years of that. Just not being fair and the lynching. So I think people need to study that more. Google this stuff. It's all there. But take the time. And now that people have the time because they're working from home or they're confined to home, and now they have more time to actually see what's going on. And I think a lot of people are saying like, wow, because we're so busy. It was stop. Everybody stopped with this virus. Stop.
Right.
So we all stopped, and then we start paying attention to, the news a little bit more and this a little bit more.
Problem over here, yeah.
Then we go like, hey, but I'm so busy with my 2 kids and this and that.
Right.
And when you're retired, you watch the news. When you're working, a lot of times, maybe the evening news you catch a little bit, but you're busy all day long.
Sure. What crystallized it for me was a metaphor, and I know we've seen probably half a dozen different metaphors to illustrate the difference between Black Lives Matter and the statement that all lives matter. You're right, all lives do matter. A human being is a human being. but somebody equated it to the wildfires that we had back in the fall. And I watched firsthand as the fires crept down south from the Agua Dulce area, and they were creeping up the hill and caught one of the tract homes on fire. And the firefighters pulled up, and a friend of mine said to me, imagine if the firefighters had pulled onto that street and started hosing down all of the homes in the neighborhood. Because, that water, the humidity, will help prevent those other homes from burning. They're going to start at that first home. Well, the poor guy whose house is on fire is going to say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
My house is burning over here. And the firefighters, if they were to respond, well, all of these homes matter, so we're gonna wet all of them. We're gonna get to you.
Yeah.
That would be an outrage, right? And this friend of mine equated the Black Lives Matter movement to me that way, saying, look, we've got a community that is on fire right now, that is being destroyed. Yes, all of our communities matter, and Matt, your community has some concerns that need to be addressed, but right now we've got one that's on fire, and we've all got to look at this. We've all got to chip in the way neighbors do. They chip in to take care of each other, and so that's the way she equated it for me. That's what helped crystallize things for me. I mentioned.
But see, you were having discussions. You were communicating, and you were focused on the topic. Not trying to cherry pick around it. You were focused on the topic. And that's what we need, Some people just need to, have friends and people they know, or people through school or the PTA, and people just need to talk. And effective listening. I used to tell the staff all the time, you have to listen to the kids, whether it's the 10-year-old, the middle schooler, or the junior in high school. Listen. Effective listening. That's how we learn. We got to listen.
That's really important. We've talked about that on the show in the context of education, in the context of parenting, the need to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I want to ask our listeners to check themselves. If they're going to respond to someone else and the first two words out of their mouth are, yeah, but, you might want to consider whether or not you were listening, whether you were truly listening to understand. Because, Jim, I'll be the first to admit it, I am notorious for that. I have, for the huge majority of my life, when I'm having conversations with people, regardless of the topic, I'm listening, thinking, how am I going to respond? What am I going to say, rather than saying to myself, what was that like? What must it have been like to grow up in that situation, or what's that like for that person to live in those circumstances, or what was it like as they're describing their 14th birthday to me, right? Listening to truly understand, like you said, to empathize. Now, when we talk about the demonstrations, the first and most urgent demand that the protesters had was the arrest and charges being filed against all 4 officers involved in George Floyd's murder. Well, that happened last week, but the protests continue. And I was watching a clip last night that said, yeah, we're going to stay out here until we see the change that we need to happen. So what kind of change do you believe that people are seeking right now?
Well, when I look and I see so many young people out there and the diversity in the crowd, I'm like, it makes me feel really good. I go, this is America. We're back at it. This is, we got some problems. Let's deal with it. And I think a lot of it is social justice. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. And so I look at all these young people and I feel really good. And when they see police brutality, you can't shun that. I mean, his knee on the neck for 8 minutes and 40-some seconds. I mean, and then all these demonstrations when they take a knee. Did you try to kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds? I did. It's a long time. It's a long time, man.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, well, nobody's around. Maybe I could, no, 8 minutes and 40. And about the 5-minute mark, my knee was, I go like, wait a minute, man, I'm a senior citizen here. What am I doing, But I did it, and wowee, I mean, phew, But I think other things that they bring up, and they talk about maybe the police unions, when you see them cheering this officer coming out, those two officers that pushed the old man down, you go like, I didn't get that. Somebody will go, so, well, that's the brotherhood. And I go, yeah, but that's probably the part of the problem. So we all been in, whether it's scouting or on football teams, the police, there is that brotherhood, sisterhood there, but there's still right and wrong. And if you're here to protect, serve and protect, something's not right here. And I think sometimes it's the unions, which are valuable, but sometimes they forget who they're working for or what the organization stands for, and it becomes more about money and greed and this and that. And so I think we need to kind of look at some of those budgets and what's being unveiled sometimes is in some of these budgets, they're buying this product from their buddy over here and this one. And really, they can get it cheaper over here. And, so there's more and more things that are coming out, too. So, and the young people are unveiling some of this stuff, and it's really interesting. And it's fruits for thought to say, okay, I've got to look into this. So I've been Googling stuff, and I go, well, some cities do have problems. And like, oh, that went on and this went on. I go, wow.
Okay. We may touch on that topic a little bit later. We do have to break for a commercial. You did mention a word, brotherhood, and where I go with that is to the literal definition. I've got a brother who he and I are tighter than nobody on this planet, and he will support me through all things.
My younger brother's the same way.
But you know what? There is no one that will call me to the mat faster and say, hey, you were wrong here, and you need to stand up and take care of your business.
And what would Dad say?
Right? Exactly. And so that's what brotherhood is all about. Yeah, he's got my back always, 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 but he will hold me accountable. Always. So yeah, I think that's we need to take a look at what brotherhood means there as well. But we've got so many different topics that we need to get into. We've got to take care of a little bit of business. We're going to take another commercial break, but we will be back. You're listening to SCVI Charter Schools, Eye on the Valley, Homeschooling Answers. This is a special edition that we're calling Beginning the Conversation. So do stick around here on your hometown station, KHTS.
The coronavirus has put us in a position of creating a new normal. Family Law at Home understands. Their goal is to meet you in the safest place possible, and these days that might be in your own home in a virtual meeting. Family Law at Home will provide you with immediate advice on your family law matters, such as divorce cases, child custody disputes, and domestic violence. It's as easy as going to FamilyLawAtHome.com. You'll choose your own consultation date and be in immediate contact with one of their esteemed attorneys. Family Law at Home handles the legal aspect while you and your family navigate the new chapter in your lives. Go to FamilyLawAtHome.com.
Have you heard about Assistance League Retail Store? For a good time and a great deal and bargains that are an amazing steal, there are friendly volunteers ready to share a smile. So come on in and stay a while. We take donations on gently used goods, and proceeds from our sales stay in the neighborhood. So for a great buy and a special find, come visit our store anytime. Assistance League Resale Store located at 24369 Main Street in downtown Newhall.
Hi, I'm Eric Goldhurst, Head of Operations for Burger King North America. Throughout this time, we've taken steps to take care of our guests.
And since we know many of your jobs have been affected by this crisis,
we want to help make sure you're taken care of too.
If you are looking for work, we are hiring.
And there's a spot on our team for you.
We know that we'll get through this together, as long as we keep taking care of each other.
For more information, call 253-3283. That's 253-3283.
Comfort Keepers provides your loved one with loving in-home care.
Miles McNamara, certified senior advisor and owner of Comfort Keepers in-home care.
Our caregivers can help you in your own home, enhancing independence, creating safety and comfort. Our Comfort Keepers provide companionship, meal preparation, medication reminders, assistance with personal care, and even transportation to doctor's appointments. If someone you love can use a helping hand at home, visit comfortkeepers.com.
Or call 287-4200.
Find the perfect job for you at College of the Canyon's first 2020 job fair. This spring job fair has gone virtual. If you're an employer looking for new recruits, this is your perfect opportunity to find them. And if you're a job seeker looking for employment, COC's virtual job fair will let you connect online in real time with employers seeking to fill their open positions. It's happening Thursday and Friday, June 11th and 12th from 9 a.m. till noon. For more information and to register, go to cocjobfair.com. That's cocjobfair.com.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM, 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson. I'm joined this morning by Jim Ventris for a special edition of SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley. This morning, KHTS is bringing to you the first of a series of conversations called Beginning the Conversation. Again, I'm joined this morning with Jim Ventris. He's a pillar in the Santa Clarita community who really has embraced every sector of our city and the children that he served for over 3 decades. Jim, I wanted to continue our conversation that we started before the break. You talked a little bit about finances and how the police department is concerned. And we've heard different groups mention the idea of defunding the police department. And I was looking at this last night and I started Googling, what does this mean? Are we going to take all of the money away from the police department? Because essentially that means abolishing the police department. And there are some groups that would say, yeah, we need to wipe it clean and start again. There are others that are saying, how do you expect to keep our city safe if you're going to take funding away from the police departments? How do you see this concept of defunding police departments?
Well, it's what is the definition? What does it mean? Because when you first hear defunding, it's like, just take all their money. And I think it's been kind of clarified. But let's start off with maybe we just need some corrections, and I think it's up to, I believe it was the chief of police in Houston was just saying there's 18,000 police departments in the country. Okay. And maybe there should be some things where all 18 are following the same, whether it's the chokehold or so, some national direction on things that we can comply with as a whole. For those that are saying abolish the law enforcement, well, first of all, what kind of Kool-Aid have they been drinking? Because that you can't dissolve a police department. Sure. You have to have somebody that's going to come in and try and keep the peace. I think each department has to look in the mirror, and if you don't have those community committees where citizens from the community can come in and express themselves and sit down. A lot of departments do, some don't, or it's not very active. Okay. So I think they really need to kind of take a look at it, and you have to review. I think time is now is to be open to the community and just say, come on in, let's have some discussions. And you see that going on all over the country, that those that have been a step ahead, they're in good shape. Those that are behind, that are trying to get caught up, you see them kind of coming in pretty well, but they just need to be very open with the community and have input from the community, meaning the schools, meaning the PTAs, the churches, your nonprofits, single moms, child and family, Boys and Girls Club. All those people should be invited to the table if it's going to be the community.
Yeah, because the community, you can't leave out a sector. Jim, I watched an interview that you did a few years back, and you talked about the repercussions of maybe cutting funding at the Boys and Girls Club, and you said the first two people that you call when we start discussing those things are the school district superintendent and the captain of our local sheriff's station, because if we're talking about less funding for the Boys and Girls Club, we're talking about fewer kids that are going to be able to get served service, which means more kids that are going to have some idle time. They're going to be out doing other things, and so those members of the community are going to have to step up. It's not just a matter of, if we hyper-localize it, if we take away a certain amount of funding from my home's budget, okay, we're just going to stop eating lunches. That's not feasible. So what I hear you saying is the notion of defunding is more a re-examination of how we're doing things. Can we do things more efficiently where we can still afford to support a strong, vibrant, active law enforcement community, but also maybe take some of those dollars that we're able to save in certain areas and reinvest in other sectors of the community,
like prevention.
Boom.
Thank you.
There we go. Which then it now becomes a cyclical idea where there's more prevention, meaning there's less problems to deal with on the law enforcement side, which makes it a lot easier to get by on a little bit shorter of a budget. Okay, so we're on a short break here at the bottom of the hour. We need to take another commercial break, but when we come back, Jim, I want to talk to you about some of the things that are going on more locally, what you see happening specifically here in Santa Clarita. Like I said, we're going to take a quick commercial break, get caught up on some local and national news stories, and then we will continue this series that we're calling Beginning the Conversation, brought to you by KHTS. You're listening to SCVI Charter Schools, Eye on the Valley, and your hometown station, KHTS.
My tile is 20 years old, and it makes my house look 20 years old.
For quality, custom kitchen, bath, and tile, trust the professionals at Southern California Tile.
Hi, I'm Bob of Southern California Tile, and I invite you to come look at the wide selection of tile and stone at our showroom. We offer you personalized one-on-one service and help you see the many beautiful possibilities for improving your home.
Get some style at Southern California Tile.
In Placerita, by the entrance to Masters College.
Hi, it's Rick Garcia from My Radio Show with Rick Garcia here on KHTS. Man, it seems like it's been forever since we sat down in a restaurant and enjoyed a meal with our family and friends. As the clock counts down to the expiration of the stay-at-home order, a lot of our local businesses are working hard, getting ready to reopen, including restaurants. Ultimately, it's up to our local restaurants to come up with safety plans moving forward. But we can help too. Plan on no more than an hour of dining out. If we don't linger, it allows more turnover for the restaurant, which in turn provides more business for them and more tips for servers who are on the front line. In other words, it's a win-win. Together, we can create a new normal for Santa Clarita that's safe and enjoyable.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top-quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
Hi, I'm Eric Goldhurst, Head of Operations for Burger King North America. Throughout this time, we've taken steps to take care of our guests.
And since we know many of your jobs have been affected by this crisis,
we want to help make sure you're taken care of too.
If you are looking for work, we are hiring.
And there's a spot on our team for you.
We know that we'll get through this together, as long as we keep taking care of each other.
For more information, call 253-3283. That's 253-3283.
KHTS, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM Santa Clarita. It's 10 o'clock. Time for national news on KHTS.
An uplifting message. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. The funeral service for George Floyd happening in Texas as tributes and protests continue around the world calling for change.
Following a private service for George Floyd today, a funeral procession to Houston Memorial Gardens in Pearland, Texas, where the group Moms of Pearland spent the morning tying crimson and gold ribbons along the procession route.
A way to show love and support, not division and anger and hate. We brought out our children so that they can be a part of a positive change.
Floyd's burial today also follows public services in Houston, where he grew up, in North Carolina, where he was born, and in Minneapolis last week, where he died while in police custody.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. As the funeral was beginning at noon Eastern, the New York Stock Exchange holding a moment of silence in honor of George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Other markets around the world and protesters pausing to do the same. There's a growing debate over what change should mean.
Hundreds of thousands of American protesters are not asking us to chip away around the edges. They want bold reform.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a day after House Democrats unveiled sweeping proposals aimed at addressing police procedures and oversight. But there is some bipartisan opposition to defunding police. Michigan Democratic Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin.
I don't support defunding the police. That's not something that's practical. They have an important role. Can there be more accountability? 100%. Should money be based on good policing? Sure. But that's different than defunding the police.
A New York City police officer facing criminal charges after a video showing a woman being shoved to the ground during a protest. Assault charges and other counts filed today by prosecutors in Brooklyn. The 28-year-old officer was already suspended without pay. America is listening to Fox News.
Bria's fashion boutique is the worst. First, they asked me if I needed help finding anything. Just because I'm gorgeous doesn't mean I need help.
No matter how hard you work for your small business, online reviewers will find something to complain about.
Then they tell me they're having a sale. Oh, so you're assuming I'm poor. Cool.
And while Progressive can't save you from these trolls, we can help you save money on commercial auto and business insurance.
Also, they tried to give me the friends and family discount. I'm not your friend, so...
Get a quote online today at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliated and third-party insurers.
We're all in uncharted territory, looking for ways to support our communities. At Dell Technologies, we're making sure small businesses have the right tech solutions. Dell Technologies advisors are here for you, from helping small businesses stay connected and productive while working remotely with Windows 10 and Microsoft Teams, to rapidly deploying remote work solutions that limit upfront costs with Dell Financial Services. We're standing by you every step of the way. Call 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Tensions flaring again between North and South Korea.
North Korea playing hardball with its neighbor to the south. The regime of Kim Jong-un saying it is cutting communications links to South Korea, including a hotline aimed at diffusing disputes. The reason given, leaflets critical of the regime scattered across the border from the south by North Korean defectors. The real reason, experts say, is South Korea not delivering on business deals which could aid a battered economy in the north. Experts also see this as a sign of the growing power of Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong. North-South relations is one of her responsibilities. This week marks the second anniversary of the Singapore summit involving President Trump and the North Korean leader. There has been a bit of a pause in some of Pyongyang's offensive activity since, but little warming of diplomatic feelings.
Fox's Greg Palcott. Many small business owners ready for the reopening that's now underway in New York City, but it has a long way to go.
3,700 manufacturing companies, 32,000 construction sites, and 16,000 non-essential businesses are open again. Those numbers from the city's Department of Business Services. That's great news for Love Conquers All Unisex Salon in Brooklyn.
I'm so excited.
You can't get a haircut yet at owner Danette Little Salon because the city's in phase 1 and she's limited.
We can't apply the products ourselves, so we show people how to use what's best to use for their hair, for their skin, to help them feel beautiful at home.
Little says the name of her salon lends itself to what's happening today.
Our people are fighting hard, protesting, and just trying to get justice. And at the end, love does conquer all.
CJ Papa, Fox News.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he'll be watching day-to-day testing to see if coronavirus infections spike because of the reopenings and the protests. A sell-off on Wall Street after 6 days of gains. The Dow's been down over 200 points. I'm Lisa Brady, and this is Fox News.
Thanks for listening to KHTS AM 1220, Canyon Country, California. K260CO 98.1 FM, Santa Clarita, California.
When you're looking for a midnight snack, sometimes fast food just doesn't cut it. California Bakery and Cafe is open 24/7, so you'll be able to find fresh donuts, danishes, bagels, all-natural fruit juices, gourmet sandwiches, and much more at any hour. With elaborate cakes for any occasion, including weddings, baptisms, anniversaries, corporate events, or any special event. California Bakery and Cafe in Santa Clarita is open 24 hours to satisfy any craving, anytime. Call us, 255-1254. That's 255-1254.
You see so much when you look at your child. A creative spirit that surprises you every day. Curiosity that develops into exploring unique passions. A little leader growing every day to discover who they are, what they love, and how they can make their mark on the world. At SCVI, we see those same amazing things. Our tuition-free K-12 charter school gives your child boundless opportunities to think critically and imagine freely, with a customized learning program built around each individual student. As iLead's founding school, SCVI combines an immersive approach to traditional subject learning with extracurricular activities, including STEAM, robotics, theater, music, and sports. SCVI has the only international baccalaureate program in Santa Clarita, with a 10-year proven track record of graduates excelling at top universities. And we're in your backyard, just off the 5 freeway in West Santa Clarita Valley in Castaic. For enrollment information or to learn more about our program, including homeschool options, visit iLeadSantaClarita.org. iLead Schools, free to think, inspired to lead.
This is Bradley Gross from Santa Clarita Grocery. Santa Clarita Grocery serves fresh groceries to families, individuals, and those experiencing homelessness. At Santa Clarita Grocery, out of every dollar donated, a full 99 cents goes directly to the needs being addressed. As an all-volunteer-led organization, we operate on a 1% overhead, receiving no government funding for our operations in the community, resulting in us being one of the most efficient charities in the Santa Clarita Valley. If you're looking to support the good for our community, please consider partnering with us by donating to Santa Clarita Grocery. What is donated is specifically kept in the Santa Clarita Valley, helping over 3,000 families, including 5 other community charities. Please visit our website, santaclaritagrocery.org, or visit us on social media or call us at 425-7575. That's 425-7575.
Hey there, it's Tori with your hometown station weather. Sunny day today, mostly sunny, with highs in the low 90s, overnight lows in the 60s. For anything and everything Santa Clarita Valley related, go to hometownstation.com or check us out on Facebook at KHTS Radio.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
The following is sponsored programming and does not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of KHTS or its ownership.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson, your host. You're listening to Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers, and we're hosting a very special edition of Eye on the Valley this morning. Today, KHTS Radio brings to you Beginning the Conversation, the first in a series of conversations taking a long and critical look at our communities and what needs to be done in order to help continue to move us forward. We're joined this morning by Jim Ventress. Jim Ventress served at our local Boys and Girls Club here in Santa Clarita for well over a quarter of a century, Jim, and you served the clubs for nearly 40 years. We were talking before the break, talking about different national movements, talking specifically about the Black Lives Matter demonstrations taking place across the country, indeed around the world. I want to focus now a little bit locally, if you don't mind. Sure. You know, even though we are the 3rd largest city in LA County, and we like to throw that out there to talk about how large of a city we've become, Santa Clarita still has typically been pretty removed from the types of heavy social protests until the last few years, that is. But recently we've become much more socially active. You know, my son would say we've become a little bit more woke as a community. We've been seeing demonstrations on issues ranging a wide variety of topics. Demonstrations against gun violence, which obviously this year more than ever before, it's something that's concerned so many of us. But even before the tragic shooting at Saugus High School, there were groups demonstrating against violence, demonstrations talking about marriage equality, immigration reform, now recently reopening the economy, that rally that we had just a couple, maybe 3 weeks ago, and now to the current Black Lives Matter demonstrations. To what would you attribute the change in Santa Clarita, this increasing move and passion for social activism?
Well, first of all, I think the population is more diverse now than ever.
I think you're right.
So I think if we go back, and one of the best things we did was in 1987, we became a city.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we had the various committees, the community was called, and they had these different committees you can get involved in. And I was asked to join the gang task force because we were having some problems with the gangs. And Captain Bob Spear came in. And Bob should get credit for a lot of things that he put in place before we needed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so once we got the gang task force, and he started with the Park and Rec director, myself, and at that time the 3 high schools, the principals, and we went to a 2-day session down on Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about gangs, LA County gangs.
Yeah.
And they had all these different communities there, and we were there to learn what goes on. And coming from East LA, I know what can happen if you see smoke and don't pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a fire. And so amongst the 5 of us, after the 2 days, they were telling us how to grade ourselves from a 1 being we have very little gang problems, 2, we got some graffiti, 3, we're headed there.
Right.
You know, some of our gangs have weapons. Well, it was interesting. We had city council, a couple city council people. City council thought we were at a 1. The principals of the high school and the Boys and Girls Club, we all said we're at a 3. So even amongst ourselves, we had different. But by getting together,
mm-hmm.
talking about it, by Captain Bob saying, okay, how do we address this? And then we brought in more people in the communities. We had monthly meetings, and we were able to really get a grip on why some of these kids were in gangs. And one of the things about the club was I always felt that Newhall Park was a perfect spot because I knew the gangs were there, drug sales were going on between our junior high school and the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Put the club there, and one thing, those groups don't like adults being around. You're going to have the adults on the park morning, noon, and night.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just common sense after that.
Sure.
And that was just getting together. And also, the sheriffs wanted to be in a good light with the teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how the haunted jailhouse started.
Okay.
Leon Warden decided he had an idea. And so he, Sergeant Bob Warford and Captain Bob Spear, they decided to invite me to lunch. We go, we heard about the teens doing the your haunted houses at some of the clubhouses, and how the line is wrapped around the block to get in for 50 cents. The 1988 haunted jailhouse, and so they said, what about doing it at the sheriff's station? So I remember Connie Warden was a board member, and she thought it was just a great idea. The whole board got, oh yeah, this is really good. So I remember we got I think we did it on a Sunday. It was a Sunday. So we get there 7 in the morning, and then they had to get some of the prisoners out of there. And so we were hoping for 1,000 people. And our teams that were setting it all up, and we were we're supposed to open at 11. It's about 10 o'clock, and they said, the line's wrapped around the corner. And I went out there, and I go, oh, my God. And I go, hey, and 4,000 people showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And from that day on, every year, For the first 4 or 5 years, we started adding things like, booths. The Girl Scouts would come. Just different groups would sell food, and became a carnival and display. The helicopter would come down, and the kids could get in the squad car and all that. And it really showed the sheriffs in the good light. And, and our teens would say, "This is the only time we want to see you in jail." And this is what the teens would be saying to people when they come,
That's cool.
So it's those kind of things where you just get together and come up with ideas and make it happen.
So do you think it's that understanding of, hey, we can come together as a community and affect change? And if there's something going on, whether it's in our community, in our region, in our state, that we don't like, we've got maybe a place, the center of the city, there around the sheriff's station, around the mall. We've got this kind of point of coming together metaphorically that we can bond together as a community, kind of the way we did to form a city. Right. I remember when I moved out here, we were kind of these like 4 boroughs, if you will. I know someone from New York would refer to us as Newhall, Canyon Country, Valencia, Saugus. But the idea that we came together as a city with a common goal, hey, we can do that in a grassroots movement. There's this proposal that I don't like, and you're very like-minded. Let's come together and let's let people know what we think. Right.
But I think the difference now is that we have to look and see what kind of committees, and this is where I think with the city and the school district, parents groups, let's review what we already have in place that maybe we need younger people involved. Maybe we need more diversity in some of these committees. And if we don't have a human relation committee, then we better get one from a preventive standpoint, and make sure when we go to the table and we have these meetings, we reflect what our community looks like in 2020, not what it looked like in 1985 or 1989 or 1995. It's 2020. Let's make sure we reflect that and be proactive, prevention, all that good stuff that we've been doing. It's just that in the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't opened our eyes as much as we should. And I think the young people get it.
Yeah.
And so we got to re-educate some of us other people. And we've got to have the younger voice involved in what we want to do. They have to give them some leadership in where we want to go.
And I see, personally, I see that's what the role of these different demonstrations are, is as we're moving forward, we've got a city council meeting tonight, and they've got the different items on their agenda, but every now and then there are portions of our community that will stand up and say, hey, we're shining a light on this issue over here that you're missing. You're missing something. And whether it's the current Black Lives Matter demonstrations that are going on, or like I said, a few weeks ago, folks saying, hey, you're missing the economic impact of this pandemic, and just a way of different portions of our community shining a light on that. So as we're well into week 2, heading into week 3 of the demonstrations, let's kind of try to focus our vision a little bit and take out what's happened downtown in Hollywood, Beverly Hills, things like that, what's happened in other cities, and just focus on right here in Santa Clarita. Jim, what's been your take on the local demonstrations here in town?
I'm very proud of the young people, and as a matter of fact, I think you had interviewed on the streets one lady, I think she was 67 years old, out demonstrating, and she had been through these demonstrations before, and she just said, I am so proud of these young people because they're doing it right. And their voices need to be heard. And so it wasn't just young people. There was some seniors out there too. But I love to see the diversity, and I just love to see what they're going. And I also looked at our officers. They stayed back. There was a presence there. They stayed back and let the kids do their thing. But it was to do it in a peaceful way and just, try not to, do anything stupid. And so I was really proud of them because, running in the middle of the street a few times, for the 8 minutes, whatever. But, like some people complain, like, And I go, that's the problem right there. They made me go around. I had to go around. And I go, you did not get it. It just disrupted for 10 minutes.
Sure.
And it's about me, not all this other stuff. And that's part of the problem. And that's what the kids are calling us all out on.
Yeah. You know, very high point in tensions took place last Thursday. We had seen social media posts, albeit anonymous. There was a lot of heightened tensions as we were looking at a group the size of which we had not seen before in our city. And then rumors of, okay, this is the night we're going to have violence in Santa Clarita. And so there was a lot of tension.
The buses are going to come up with all these
Well, that's what I wanted to reference, because our city council, again, was very proactive. And they've taken some criticism for that. But I remember watching on Facebook Live as the National Guard troop carriers rolled in, and I counted 7 troop carriers, not all of them full, but each of them carrying roughly 20 to 25 National Guard members as they're driving past the protesters. And for me, anyways, that's where things really got really tense. I thought, oh boy, here they come right past the demonstrators. And the demonstrators applauded their arrival.
Yes.
And that was maybe I'm misinterpreting things, but for me, it sounded like them saying, you're here to protect our communities, and so are we. And
Stay
that
focused.
Just really took that simmer down on things, and the National Guardsmen gave them the thumbs up, and I thought that was just a point of beauty in our community. Now, there's still something out there that's kind of simmering, and I've seen it as I kind of participate in several different sectors of our community. Santa Clarita has long been a town that is home to many, many police officers, both those that work here locally as well as in Los Angeles and other areas. Our city has always shown tremendous support for its police officers. My own father was a police officer with LAPD for 30 years, and so I feel the love and obligation to back the badge. But I'm not so proud of some of the things I've seen in the news lately, specifically what happened in Minneapolis, but that is not the first and was not the last instance where I've kind of cringed. Jim, it's kind of a big one. Is it possible to oppose police brutality and still support police, especially given that the problem doesn't seem to be isolated? It does seem to be systemic. We keep seeing it over and over and over. Can I oppose police brutality and still support the local cops?
Sure. I do.
Okay, well, thanks. Complicated question, very simple answer. Okay. Okay, great. So you don't see...
Well, I'm not saying that we don't have some problems here. I've been in situations where sometimes I've overheard things where, I was the only black guy around and I was in earshot of something and I go, oh, so to say things don't, it's all hunky-dory, that's probably not true. But I think what has happened is that we've had some pretty good captains over the years.
Oh, we've been blessed.
Thank you. And they are out in the community. As a matter of fact, just about every captain that's been out here since Bob Spear, I think just about everyone has been on the board and an active board member at the Boys and Girls Club. They come to the meetings, they give input, and we can tell them things that we hear. And so we're working together for the good of the community.
Sure.
And so, I think we've done a pretty good job here, of trying to keep up to what's happening. But I think these last couple of years, we really got to be on focus. When I saw what was going on at Farmers Market, and down Melrose.
Yeah.
I grew up not too far from that area, and my mom used to take us to Farmers Market to see the looting going on and stuff like that, and then to see what happened in Santa Monica, and then out in Long Beach. well, why wouldn't Santa Clarita be a target also?
Sure.
For some of these groups.
Sure.
So that was the point where I just say, well, we got to keep an eye out, and so I'd rather see it overreact than to have some of that, come up to this area.
Well, I tend to agree. It's much better to have 10 police officers when you need one than to have one police officer when you need 10, right?
And when you see the officers and the kids high-fiving and stuff, it's like, okay, that's what we want to see.
And that's some of the change that I've seen since 1992. And I think you're right. I think especially here in Santa Clarita, our police officers have taken an incredibly proactive role and a role where they are in the community. I've seen similar change in Los Angeles. I do have to tell you, does there need to be more change in Los Angeles? Absolutely. But you're talking about a much larger organization with a much deeper history, both good and bad. But I've seen change. You mentioned that your family's from New Orleans. My father worked with several detectives from New Orleans who sometimes questioned his tactics and said, well, why don't you just do this, this, and this? And my father's response to them was, because this is L.A., you can't get away with stuff like that. I think it's about time that specifically the law enforcement community here in Santa Clarita and in Los Angeles takes that leadership to help. You talked about it a few breaks ago, kind of not leveling the playing field, but bringing standards up nationwide.
Yes.
To take care. We talked about eliminating the chokehold. I believe LAPD did that a couple decades ago. And so we can take some leadership and show some of that movement nationwide. We do have to take another quick break, but we're going to come back and continue to talk about some things that are specifically happening here in Santa Clarita. Jim, so grateful for your time today. Thanks for giving us your morning. I want my listeners to stick around. We're going to continue with our Beginning the Conversation hosted by KHTS. You're listening to SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley. I am Matt Watson with Jim Ventris on your hometown station, KHTS.
At iLead Agua Dulce, we believe the most important thing a child can learn in school is who they are. Life's real tests are never standardized, which is why we've developed an individual-based curriculum that values exploration, cooperation, and creativity. As our learners grow, so do we. Our tuition-free charter school is currently enrolling grades TK through 7th and adding 8th grade in 2020. Your young learner will be immersed in a unique environment where possibility and self-discovery are at the core of every experience. The Agua Dulce campus features beautiful indoor and outdoor spaces for hands-on inspiration, including a robotics lab, a garden bed, a greenhouse, and a technology-based exploratorium. iLead Agua Dulce is conveniently located on the east side of the Santa Clarita Valley, just off the 14 freeway. Check out our homeschool options too. To schedule a campus tour or learn more about our programs, visit iLeadAguaDulce.org. We're enrolling now. iLead Schools. Free to think, inspired to lead.
Finding the right lawyer can be a challenge, but in Santa Clarita, there's no need to search when there's Hacker Law Group, Santa Clarita's premier litigation firm. Jeffrey Hacker has represented celebrities, financial institutions, accident victims, real estate developers, realtors, contractors, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other individuals and companies with their legal challenges. Mr. Hacker is one of Santa Clarita's leaders, consistently listed as one of our most influential. When everything is on the line and you need legal counseling, visit hackerlawgroup.com.
Santa Clarita Valley residents now have greater access to the excellent physicians and high-quality medical services for which Providence Holy Cross is known. Providence Holy Cross Health Center in Santa Clarita features state-of-the-art cancer and imaging technologies, as well as board-certified physicians in a variety of medical specialties. Quality and compassion from a healthcare provider you can depend on. For more information, call 1-888-HEALING or visit us at providence.org.
Dutton Plumbing, it's Eric.
It's Mother. Can you come over right away? It's urgent.
I'll be right there, Mom. Okay, I'm here. What's wrong?
It's been weeks since you had a haircut, so I want to give you a nice trim. Sit down.
Ooh, ow.
Gee, I can see myself in the back of your head, son.
Mom.
Oops.
What happened?
Never mind. It'll grow back. So, what's new at Dutton Plumbing, son?
Well, with so many people stuck at home, there's a lot of stuff getting stuck in their pipes. So, our $73 drain clearing is really keeping us busy.
Wait a minute. I bet the plumber's hair is getting shaggy, too. You tell them that Mom will cut their hair for just $73.
Isn't that a little high for a haircut, Mom?
Well, I'll toss in the manscaping for free.
Mom!
DuttonPlumbing.com. Mom's $73 drain clearing at DuttonPlumbing.com. Manscaping not included.
At Advanced Audiology, we know how important hearing is to you, your loved ones, your work success, your safety, and your ability to stay in the game. Most people won't admit hearing loss to themselves or others. We make it easy for you. Today's digital hearing aids come in a variety of styles, including invisible. All feature-rich, providing unparalleled hearing quality, wearing comfort, and automation that simplifies your life. Don't be fooled by our imitators. There's only one Advanced Audiology with the purple sign next to AAA on Valencia Boulevard.
Your hometown station.
KHTS is the only station I listen to.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers. I'm your host, Matt Watson. Today we're having a very special conversation with Jim Ventris. You remember Jim from his work at the Boys and Girls Club for decades. He has turned himself into someone that would be known as Mr. Boys and Girls Club Santa Clarita Valley. But today we're talking about the issues that are taking place in and around our community, in and around our nation over the last few weeks. Jim, we before we took that last commercial break, we were talking about the things that are happening locally. Now, I think just about all of us would agree, and I haven't had any conversations with anyone that would say, no, we're fine, we don't need to change. All of us would agree that change needs to take place. What type of change do you see as needed, both systemically, so I'm going to ask you to think globally, as well as really locally. What type of change do you think needs to happen systemically and then also here in Santa Clarita?
Geez, I guess we could take the pie and slice up different pieces here. But my big thing right now is effective listening. I have to go back to that, effective listening. And I have to compliment a lot of our people in the nonprofit field, a lot of our teachers, some of our parents groups, from various schools that are getting together, doing the effective listening, and coming up with ideas and making things happen. And I think that's what we're seeing nationally, and I think we're seeing some of that locally. And so I just hope that just continues, and we just take a good look at ourselves and just say, we could talk about, oh, we did this in 85 and we did that in 2002. You know, this is 2020, people. Mm-hmm. Where are we?
Yeah.
And really listen and then come up with these ideas. You know, we can solve them when we sit down and talk together and make sure everybody's at the table, meaning what is the makeup of our community, and make sure we have key people and make sure we have some of that young leadership that we see. I'm impressed with some of the under 40 group. I was had the honor of being one of the judges to see some of these young people in their 30s and the tremendous things that they're accomplishing, and their volunteerism with a lot of the various nonprofits. So, you know, we're kind of getting on the right track, but communication.
Okay.
And I tell this to the kids a lot. I said, be an ambassador. Mm-hmm. Be an ambassador. Put a smile on your face. Mm-hmm. When you're walking down the street, I always say, I'm going to smile first.
Yeah.
You know, put a smile on your face. You know, be that ambassador. And I think once people feel a little bit comfortable and to at least to start talking about it, and if we create these environments, whether it's at a nonprofit meeting, if it's at a school, if it's at city, any of the different park commissions, planning commissions, wherever, where people can get up and express themselves, and that group is open to letting people speak and tell their stories. A lot of stories need to be told. A lot of stories, and they're being told. We're hearing them these last couple of weeks. We're hearing a lot of stories.
Yeah, we are. And I think it's incumbent upon the community to be slow to respond and listen a little bit deeper, a little bit longer. Now, as we get together, and again, talking specifically as a city, the Santa Clarita community, what are some of the hard questions that you think we should be asking? Some of those hard topics that we really need to go into as a community?
Well, I think we all should revisit the Constitution. It should be a homework assignment for everybody. Let's look at the Bill of Rights and just say, all right, here's what it says, and here's what we have tried to follow for all these years. And, you know, we're like this big ship, I think, you know, and it turns slowly, you know, and sometimes we go, we need to speed it up a little bit, you know, speed it up a little bit. And at times it seems as though it slowed down. At times I go, have we stopped? You know, because sometimes I think we're kind of going backwards at times.
Right.
So, you know, let's everybody get the Constitution out. Let's take a look at it and say, all right, here's what it says. And, you know, let's start from there. And then speak up. Look in the mirror at yourself and ask yourself questions. What am I doing? Do I give a damn? And that's big, because some people, they don't. They're settled in their ways.
Okay.
And they're good. And, you know, you deal with it.
Yeah, there's some big issues out there, and it can be uncomfortable. You and I talked about that word when we were at the commercial break. Look, the city of Santa Clarita has been, talking broadly, we've been a pretty comfortable community for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
We do well here in Santa Clarita.
I didn't move when I retired.
But there you go. There you go. But, you know...
Just being honest.
We also look at our life's purpose, and I don't know that too many of us set out to say, you know what, I want to live a comfortable, safe life. You know, we want to impact the world. So I think that is important. You know, we referred to it at the very beginning of the show, Gandhi's famous words, be that change that you want to see.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It starts with us. Even those that would say, but look, it's this community that needs to change. It's this community that needs to hear us. Yes, absolutely. So start with what you can control. Right?
Didn't you mention that we're now the third largest city in LA County?
We are.
And let's see, there's like, what, 86 cities or 87 cities in the county? Something like that. It's past 85.
Sounds right, yeah.
85 and up. So to pass Burbank and Glendale, I mean, it's just Los Angeles, Long Beach, and then Santa Clarita.
Right.
This ain't Santa Clarita 1987. Like I said, this is Santa Clarita 2020. We got a very diverse community here. We got a lot of people here. And people are here for basically the same reason. Safe.
Yep.
My kids can get educated on taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, those are some great selling points, great neighborhoods, you know.
But it's not enough to sit back and take advantages of all the benefits that we have. We got to start leading, right?
Or still throw rocks at certain groups of people. You just can't do that.
So when we sit down and have those talks, what do you see as the biggest obstacles? What could stop those talks before they get started, or what could stop them from affecting any real change?
Well, I mentioned some people that just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they don't care, how do you address them? So you just say, all right, how do I get the majority of the other people that are kind of getting it, you know? And I think the way it gets done is everybody's invited to the table and we start discussions. And if you have friends, or if you don't have any friends that are people of color, well, make some. Find some. Your kids go to school. There's all kind of, different parents in PTA meetings. You know, get involved. Try and learn something. It's not just about you.
Okay.
You know, my family, yeah. We're part of a community, too. You moved up here for that reason. You moved up here because it's safe. These schools aren't great schools just because they're great schools. No, they have good teachers. Parents are involved. Students have some say. You know, and that's we just got to continue that. But some of the topics now are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Racism.
Yep.
But you know what? Young people, they're dealing with it. It's just some of us old farts just have a problem. And I'm sorry, but, you know, it's these kids got the next 50, 60 years, 70 years to look forward to. And you know, they have say. They're going to be paying the taxes, too.
Yeah. Yep. Jim, I've said it a couple times already this morning, and I do want to preface my next question by saying that you're just one guy. You are a great guy, but you're one man, and I'm not asking you to speak for all people of color. But that having been said, what would you like the white community to hear right now?
First of all, we're all God's children. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. Secondly, we all can be ambassadors. Do something. Sure, you may be feeling uncomfortable, but like I say, reach out, talk to people, find some person of color. Just talk. What do you think? Listen, think of the old 80-20 thing, you know?
Yeah.
80% listen. 20% talk. Listen. Be an ambassador. Just be an ambassador. And, check yourself. Look in the mirror. What am I doing? What have I done? Because there's a lot of people that have done a lot of good things. I've had some board members go beyond the call of duty. I've had volunteers for that auction. Cheryl Gray, 35, 6 years, you know. Just so many people like that have always given up their time. And they have families and they have a job. But they go, I like what this stands for. It's making a difference in kids' lives. So, so I think those are just a few of my thoughts. And again, it's just get involved.
Okay.
You've got, and like I said, there's plenty of people doing that, but we still have a lot of people that haven't been really involved so much with the community. Maybe with their schools, they'll say, well, I'm involved with the schools. Yeah, but we got a community out here that, we need to make sure that everybody's on the same page of where we're going. We've done a decent job so far, but, don't assume, because you know what that means,
Yeah. So you've mentioned a lot that the huge first step that we need to take is to start that conversation. That's why we invited you in today, why KHTS decided to host this series of conversations. But it goes beyond that. We've got to take those conversations into action, right? Because we've seen fights against systemic racial inequality in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, LA, across our nation. Protests, riots, uprisings, whatever you want to call them, and I know each one gets labeled a different thing as history starts to look at it, but we've seen different actions in 1919, 1935, 1943, throughout the 60s, into the Watts riots, 92 here in LA, now again today. Something's got to be done, Jim. What do we have to do to make sure that we see some real change this time so that we're not back in the same place 25, 27 years from now?
I think it's been happening in these last 2 weeks. The protest, hearing people speak. And, you know, it's everybody speaking. I mean, when you just look at the diversity of people that are stepping up, you know, a lot of positive things are being said. And so, again, I think for our community, it's just say, hey, we have been a good community. We've tried to do everything as best we can and to do it the right way, and we have. We're not perfect. It's just like, you know, I look at the American flag and being a veteran, and I go, that's our flag. We're not perfect, but we're always striving to get to that point. Mm-hmm. And that includes we, the people of the United States. You know, it's not we, the white people of the United States. It's we, the people of the United States. Mm-hmm. And so if we look at the words of the Constitution and where we are in 2020, it's like, are you doing anything, or are you just sitting back? Mm-hmm. How are you teaching your kids? So, you know, it's up to us to just pay attention to where we're at in the last couple of years. Pay attention, ask questions, do something.
Okay. We're talking this morning with Jim Ventris, a pillar in the Santa Clarita community for the last several decades. We're going to take one more commercial break. When we come back, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to invite station owner Jerry Sarati Goldman in to join us to get her thoughts, and I also want to take some time to thank her for helping start this conversation in our community. You're listening to SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers. I'm Matt Watson with Jim Ventris on your hometown station, KHTS.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
Hi, this is Wendy Hassenflug, yoga and wellness entrepreneur. I'm excited to share one of the best kept secrets in Santa Clarita. Top Out Climbing Gym is one of my favorite places. Rock climbing is exceptional for building upper and lower body strength, and it improves your flexibility. Almost anyone can rock climb, and you don't have to be super fit to climb. You'll build strength and stamina while having fun at the same time. Get over to Top Out Climbing Gym in Center Point and challenge yourself to new heights.
Comfort Keepers provides your loved one with loving in-home care.
Miles McNamara, certified senior advisor and owner of Comfort Keepers in-home care.
Our caregivers can help you in your own home, enhancing independence, creating safety and comfort. Our Comfort Keepers provide companionship, meal preparation, medication reminders, assistance with personal care, and even transportation to doctor's appointments. If someone you love can use a helping hand at home, visit comfortkeepers.com.
Or call 287-4200.
Loss of hearing can affect the quality of life. Santa Clarita Hearing Center can help. They specialize in both preventative hearing loss and corrective measures, including diagnostic tests, new technology hearing aids, cochlear implants, hearing protection, and tinnitus treatment. They can adjust your current hearing aids or fit you for new ones. Santa Clarita Hearing Center also offers sleep molds, swim molds, and musician monitors. Book an appointment today. Log on to SantaClaritaHearingCenter.com. Located on McBean Parkway next to the hospital. That's SantaClaritaHearingCenter.com.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, and you're listening to Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers. And today we've started the conversation. We're beginning this series that KHTS has so graciously allowed me to host, called Beginning the Conversation, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. We've been joined this morning by Jim Ventris, and you know Jim. He's been a pillar in our community for several decades now with all his work at the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita. And We've asked Jerry Cerati Goldman, station owner, to join us this last break as well to get her thoughts. I also want to thank Jerry. But before we get into it, I just want to explain for our friends joining us on Facebook Live. You'll notice that Jim and I are wearing our cloth face coverings, and engineer Shane, even though he's off camera, he's there, got his mask on. But Jerry's not wearing a mask today. And well, many of you that have followed Jerry and her husband Carl's saga know that Jerry's been through that, and gosh, you've been tested, poked, and prodded by doctors from around the country, and they've found that you are completely immune. So you're one of those lucky, very few people that don't need to wear face covering, aren't you?
Very, very strong T cells. So I appreciate my T cells.
There we go. There we go. So Jerry, again, I wanted to thank you for opening up this conversation. You know, you and I spoke over the weekend, and you said, Matt, there's some things going on in and around our community that need to be addressed. We as a station can't stay silent, and I think you need to help get the ball rolling. And you reached out to Jim and invited him in as well.
My go-to person.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful for that. Jerry, can you tell us, why is this conversation so important for you and your husband, Carl?
This community means everything to us in our world. We've raised our kids here. We want to keep this the wonderful community that it is, and it's because of Jim Ventris and Matt Watson that it is this wonderful community. And in a time of turmoil, I mean, our community went from fires, Saga shooting, COVID, now, you know, protests. I think if we talk and keep the dialogue going and have a communication, I think that my experience is one of our biggest issues is lack of communication.
Amen.
And if we can keep a communication going, us as the voice of Santa Clarita, and this is the first person I turn to, because reasonable and knowing what's in his heart and what he gave back, he would be the perfect person. So that's why I want to start this. And if people out there have ideas, I'd love to keep this up, keep the dialogue going, keep the communication going.
Definitely. So if folks, you've issued that invitation now. If folks do have ideas to continue this conversation, who should they reach out to?
Myself.
Okay.
Jerry, 298-1220. Yeah, we would love to keep it going.
Well, that's easy to remember, 298-1220. They just call you here at the station, ask for Jerry, and we'll continue this ball rolling, because, you know, Jim and I have been talking about it for the last couple of hours. The conversation's getting started, but so many times in the history of our country, we've had great ideas, we've started good conversations, and then we get distracted by the economy, by sports, by whatever else is going on in the world. You know, we tend to communicate in sound bites, and the next sound bite comes up and we forget about the last one. We've got to keep this conversation going.
And I think it's in miscommunication that wars start. Lack of communication is where, you know, wars start. My oldest one just became a major and graduated from West Point 10 years ago. Wow. And it's almost like this weekend, even thinking about that, wanting to put it on Facebook, I'm wondering, what kind of hate am I going to get? Which was a pause for thought too. But, you know, he graduated 10 years ago. He's going back. He became a major on Sunday. He's going back to West Point to teach. I mean, you know, and as he's written papers, because he just got his master's, and I'm reading these papers, and it's like, my God, this kid's so wise. But wars have started from lack of communication.
Correct.
Yeah.
You have a thought that's your thought. I have a thought that may be different. We're not going to sit down and talk about it. We're going to kill each other.
Right. And you know, you talk about on social media, we do the same thing, and it seems like we're even quicker on social media. There's something that seems to be anonymous and protective about a digital device. And, you know, there's some positive things that come from it, but there's so many difficulties that come up. The slightest decision that you make. Should I post about my son getting a promotion? I mean, why would you ever have to second guess that?
And I did.
But Jerry, you're right. You and your husband Carl over the last few months have suffered so many hateful things when you've done whether it's innocuous things or things that are beneficial for our communities, I think people are so quick to kind of throw those fire bombs. Now, at the same time, I think the instant nature of social media, and we've seen it here in our community over the last couple of weeks, causes people to have to think twice about what they're saying, which can be a good thing. You know, it is important to think before we speak, but then once we do decide to speak, I think we need to do so in a lot more civil manner, and again, think about how we're speaking.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Some of those same people, let there be an emergency in this community, they're turning to this radio station. And that can go back to when we had the earthquake, when we have fires, when there's something on the freeway, street closures, they're tuning in. So some of those same people making those comments, let there be emergency, they're turning.
Absolutely.
And I would just remember calling the station when we had, the club was closed because we were Red Cross Center, and we had 3 newborns. And I remember
that.
We needed Pampers.
And you got Pampers like that.
They put it out. 45 minutes later, I'm telling them, no more Pampers. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
But everybody tunes in when there's an emergency.
So, Jerry, I want to ask you one of the hard questions that I asked Jim. We're clearly, especially here in Santa Clarita, we're living through something that we haven't seen before. Clearly, things today are different than they ever have been, and things need to change. What would you like to see come as a result of the different demonstrations and protests that we've seen in our community?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy that they ended up being peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you guys a story that leading up to last week, Carl and I were getting threats again.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into a fear mode, and when you go into fear, you do things that are absolutely crazy. We had this place boarded up.
Right.
Silly, cost me a lot of money. I mean, it's crazy. But I did things that I would normally not do out of fear, which I got to look at this weekend and really examine and saw this is what happened when people do go into fear. So if there was a suggestion is, if you do anything from fear, it's not going to be the outcome's not going to be what you want it to be.
Okay.
So that's, I believe, really important. I would love to know where the threats that we got from last week, where they came from, because not only were there threats, but our advertisers, which pay our bills to stay on the air, ended up having to close down. As I'm talking to some of the car dealers on Auto Row, or Greg Amsler, that has now been shut down for 3-4 months with COVID, and being kicked out of his building now, not both on Thursday and Friday morning, and so I see it from a different point of view. If there's a way to do it without the threats, I mean, the way they did it was absolutely amazing. If we could do that, and everyone get together, go do what you feel's in your heart, because for young people these days, they don't have convictions. This is their life. The cell phone.
True.
It gets them outside. It gets them doing different things. Have a voice, but respect what the next person next to you feels, or don't race to judgment on social media. I mean, I made a post. There happened to be rocks that were found at the mall on one of the days, and I posted, hey, if you guys see these rocks, the hate, and I had to block about 10 people that day. And it was just being proactive, because we were getting the threats down here. Bad threats about Carl and I, and being, Trump lovers and all this stuff. We went to the White House, but we would have been incredibly grateful to go to the White House if Obama was president and had the same joy that we had, going to the White House. So this one's really tough for me.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough. I want our young people to have a voice, and talking to Jim this weekend really opened up my eyes to so many different things. there needs to be a closure. And if young people want to have a voice about this and have a purpose in life, that's great. Keep doing it the way you're doing it here peacefully.
Yes.
Our good friend had hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage done to his Santa Monica building. He now, because of that, his PPP's gone in 1 month. And he has to lay off.
Which was intended for his employees to keep their jobs.
So to think about what you're doing before you do it. Know what your purpose is. Your purpose is to go protest, do it peacefully, keep that on, do that. Don't stray from that line of hatred, of how would you describe it? There's other reasons.
Yeah.
There's another purpose. So I feel that there is a group out there that has another purpose.
Sure.
Thank God our community did not. We did have one problem, and it ended up being someone that was white racist. And, I'm glad that that was on camera, and I'm glad that that was captured.
And some of these kids are policing themselves. If they see something awkward, they're saying something.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen the first couple of days in other areas, but now everybody's policing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love seeing that in our community. And Jim, you're absolutely right. It didn't happen for a few days downtown and some of the other areas of our county. But then I think you're right. The protesters did step in and say, no, you're not going to kidnap it this time. You're not going to kidnap this cause because it's too important. It's gone on too long.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's some of these radical groups that gave us the threats and are the paid protesters. I don't know, because you do have the group of people that are the paid protesters, and it's a political thing.
Sure.
Anyone that wants to disagree, bring it on. But we have what we found in our community are these amazing kids that did it in such a peaceful way. There was about 20 of them out yesterday at Soledad and Sierra Highway. They did it in a great way.
But I think also when you just kind of look at these other groups, it has to be organized.
Right.
And if you look at the areas that pick Melrose, Farmers Market, the Grove,
yeah,
looting Nordstrom's, Santa Monica, Long Beach, why not Santa Clarita?
Yeah.
The third largest city in LA County. So, some people say maybe we overreacted, but
yeah,
it'd be safe than sorry.
And one of our threats was we're going to come up to you because you guys think you're white and mighty and white supremacist.
Yeah, but that's their ignorance because we're pretty diverse.
Yeah.
Right.
More diverse than people realize.
Yeah. Well, this is not, Jim said it earlier in the hour, this is not the community that was back in the 80s and 90s. We have changed significantly.
And that's even more of a reason for Jim and you and I to do the work that we do in our community and work with the nonprofits or start the nonprofits that we have and take us to the next level. We're not going to let this be.
And that's one thing this community always did. If there was a nonprofit that we didn't have that we needed,
we started one.
When I started, there was like maybe 15 nonprofits,
yeah,
and now we're over 100. So we need this, we need that, and the community's, all right, let's get it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes people actually want to move here.
Yeah.
The schools, the safety.
The schools, yeah.
And having all these nonprofits that are doing their jobs.
I think you're right, Jim. I think our community has always been quick to evolve and respond to the needs of the community. So grateful for the two of you being in here. Before we go, Jim, I want to open it up to you first. Is there any parting message that you want to give? Anything else that you want to say to our community?
We're all God's children. Be an ambassador for humanity. That's simple.
That's a really good point. I always reminded my kids and my students before we left the house, before we left the school on a field trip. But remember, you are representing yourself, your family, your school. When I taught at a private school, you're representing your God when we go out to that museum. So yeah, you're right. We need to be an ambassador. Jerry, how about you? What would you like to say to our community at this time?
That some of us in the community that have been here for 30 plus years have worked really, really hard. And let's let the next generation, as we've been starting to train and mentor them, continue this and make this such an amazing community.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank you both for being here today. Jim, really appreciate your time. I know that this type of conversation, it can be difficult when you're asked to represent a certain sector of the community, but as you've done for decades, you stepped up and really represented our community well, and I want to thank you. Jerry, thank you so much for setting the stage.
This is the first of hopefully many.
Absolutely, and what better place to start the conversation than on local radio. We really appreciate it. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. Fortunately, this conversation is going to continue, as my first guest tomorrow is Mayor Cameron Smythe.
Awesome.
So I want to thank all of you for joining us and invite you back tomorrow and every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. for another session of SCVI Charter Schools Eye on the Valley Homeschooling Answers. Again, be that ambassador out there. Be safe. Continue to do us proud the way you've been doing these last couple of weeks, Santa Clarita. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. This is your hometown station, KHTS.
Honey, SCV Water wants to help you find your fit and take advantage of conservation rebate programs that will help you save. Water your landscape more efficiently. Replace your lawn with water-wise plants. Conduct free in-home water surveys. Cover your swimming